Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. I'm your host, Rudo, joined by AJ Hayfley to answer some listener questions on the podcast today. Got a bunch of good ones from Twitter. I'm sure we'll answer a bunch from the live chat as well. If you're not on YouTube, highly recommend you hop over there and watch us to get in on the live chat action. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video as well, as that helps us out a bunch. All right, let's jump into this thing. We'll get to our main title question in a little bit, but I do want to start off with some other questions that we are getting asked quite a bit about. The first being the Avs prospects and mostly Alex Newhook and his opportunities to potentially play with the Colorado Avalanche this season. Obviously, he had the 2-point night the other night. We talked about it a little bit there, but I think the reality is that no, even in the playoffs, he's unlikely to find a spot in the Avalanche roster.
Yeah, first things first is he has to take care of business with the Eagles.
Yep.
His first game was,
fine.
It was very obviously an adjustment for him.
Yep.
Second game, way more of what you are expecting to see from Newhook, but it has to continue. He has to keep doing that because, look, I tell you, if he rolls along at 2 points per game in the AHL, he'll get called up
for sure.
You'll just find a way. That's the easy route, right? He destroys the AHL. He forces their hand. They use the last, 10 games of the regular season, 10 days of the regular season, somewhere in there, to try and find a spot for him in the lineup, or they even just have him up and practicing with the team and doing their thing.
Yep.
It starts with him though, long before it becomes another frustrational point with Avalanche management.
For sure.
He's got to do his thing. And then even then though, where do you put him? But Nazem Kadri's struggles aren't such that you're going to put him in. You're not going to take Kadri out of your lineup and put Newhook in. You're not going to drop Kadri in your lineup and put Newhook in. None of that is going to happen.
I don't care how much faith you have in Alex Newhook as a prospect. You could think he's the hottest prospect in the world right now. You don't drop prospects into the top 6 in the NHL. It's incredible, particularly on a team as good as the Avalanche.
Yeah, on competitive teams, you don't do that.
Yeah. Nathan McKinnon started his career on the third line.
Yeah, well, and he was 18. Kids
definitely a little different there.
Kids that are 20 years old, 21 years old. You'll see a little bit of variety. When Cole Caulfield hits the Canadiens, he will probably be, at very worst, a middle sixer. But
you'll even see in Cole Caulfield's debut, whatever you want to call it, he'll get extremely sheltered on the defensive side of the puck.
they will force him to earn some level of trust in
Yeah.
certain situations. There's no doubt. With Newhook, like he's just there to at the moment. There's just not an obvious fit for him, especially with the addition of Soderbergh, who could kind of just be the Swiss Army knife for them. And that's my hope, is that that's exactly what he becomes, and not like he's going to play on this line all the time. And when there are already combinations for the Avalanche that are working nicely.
For sure.
So with Newhook, again, it starts with him. He's got to do it at the AHL level first.
Yep.
And the chances that he is so good that they have to call him up, they're just not great.
Let me ask it to you this way. What is the higher chance that Newhook, how do I want to phrase this? What is the higher chance that Newhook plays with the Avs this year, or that Newhook is not on the starting lineup opening night next year?
The second one is the higher chance.
Yeah. I agree. And look, where Newhook stands going into next season is largely going to depend on what he does with the Eagles this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'll be training camp and all of that to make those decisions. Yep. But
in an off season where, somebody gets lost to expansion, they're going to have some for the first time, they're going to have serious financial constraints put on them. Just with re-signing some of their own guys, they're going to have to make decisions. Somebody's going to walk.
Yep.
Or they're going to have to move assets to
hold on,
save money,
whatever,
trade contracts, whatever. There's going to be a shakeup coming this offseason, no matter what.
For sure.
No doubt. But to be honest, injuries won't play a major role in getting Newhook in there. There would have to be a number of injuries. They're already. I think. Look, if Kadri's the guy that gets hurt, there is a temptation. But if it's if Belmar gets hurt, you're not going to replace that guy with Newhook. It would be fun. I would be excited about it, but it would be too easy for them to just move Comfer into that spot and then play one of the many wing guys that they have available to them. Yeah. They have so many options on the wings that with Newhook, it's like he's just going to be down that list.
Yeah, Newhook hasn't proven to be a franchise-altering talent. There's a world where he could be, but he hasn't proven it yet. And since he hasn't proven it yet, it would be hard to justify calling him up even ahead of, say, a Martin Kaut. So...
Well, and not even, we're not even getting into that, but Kiefer Sherwood and Liam O'Brien.
I'm trying to explain, that's how far down the chart that he is.
Where exactly he is on that chart, some of that will be determined by how he plays.
Certainly not set in stone, yeah.
You have to feel like there's probably 3 or 4 guys before you even get to Alex Newhook. And if Kaut and Bowers or Kaut or Bauer, if those guys are ahead of Newhook, then you really are getting into the depth at that point.
A super chat from Evan says, I'm trying to get my girlfriend to like hockey. Problem is she's from Texas. How do I say to her that it's a bad decision to become a Dallas Stars fan?
That's just what you tell her. You show her Stars history. And you say last year was a comical anomaly. And you kind of shrug and move on.
All right. Explain to her that, all the pain across the United States that is caused by the Dallas Cowboys. The Stars will do the exact same thing without all of the fanfare and hype around the team. It's just they'll hurt you and no one will care. So that's my take on it. Next question that was asked by a couple of people on Twitter as well. The future of Philipp Grubauer. We've talked about this a handful of times on the show, so we'll probably keep it pretty brief. But obviously there's no reason for Grubauer to sign a contract before hitting free agency.
Certainly no reason for him to sign a contract before the offseason.
Yeah, sure. Given the way he's played, especially. So it's very, very much the ball is in Grubauer's court here, right? Like, I'm sure the Avs would love to sign him to a $4.5 million deal for the next 3-4 years, whatever. But there's no reason for Grubauer to do that, given the comparables that are out there.
If you let me ask this, because I know this will mostly be a wasted conversation because it's not realistic, but if you could, instead of giving him $6 million over 3 years, 4 years, would you rather give him a 7-year deal at $4.5 million and trade the length?
Boy, that's tough. At 4.5 is the right number to ask that question on, because at 4, I think you do it. The extra $500K is definitely a little stickily.
Yeah. Yeah. 7 years for a guy that's already in his 30s.
He's 30, right?
I think he actually turns 30 this year.
Okay. So he's not like 32. He's not going to be 40 at the end of that deal, but he won't be young.
I'll just double check.
Yeah, he's 29, turns 30 this year.
Oh, he turns 30 in November.
So he'd be 37 at the end of the deal.
Yeah. Basically. Okay. Still. And at 4.5, it's like when the cap starts going up and
yeah, I mean,
you get through the flat cap era, like 4.5 could be a pretty small number for a starting goaltender.
And you're banking on what? You get 4 quality years out of that? Is that value?
Let's say 4 like high end years, like 4 years, like what they're getting right now,
of like $925 and above or something. Yeah, like.
And then anything after that, any like true starter quality that you get after that, let's say is gravy. This bonus, you're happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I'd do it at 4.5. I think.
I also think that I would be very tempted, but I think I would pass. I think I have come to terms with my hard and fast rule of you don't sign goaltenders.
Just accept it. Go get the next diamond in the rough or guy that can't find the starting position or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. My solution, and I don't do this for the meaning, I call Washington. Because they're going to have an expansion draft problem with Vitek Vanacek and Samsonov. They've got a problem.
Yeah.
And instead of letting Seattle solve that problem for him, I would try and grab one of those guys and make him the starter.
It's one way to go about it.
Not just like to go back to the Washington well, because they've done it twice now.
Hey, look, if an organization pumps out quality goalies, they pump out quality goalies.
They just have like Vanacek is, I think, 25.
Right.
I think Samsonov is a year younger. So it's either that or, you see what you could do. Maybe you try and trade for Varley again, because they're going to have to try and make a serious commitment to Sorokin. Like they're going to have an issue with that tandem and paying it and the money and everything that they've got. The Islanders are going to struggle to bring back that tandem, because Sorokin's going to be, he's an RFA, but at 25, like they're going to have to give him real money right away.
Yep.
So, maybe you call them up and you see what's up with Varley, because he only has 2 years left at $5 million.
Definitely, you're not committing to anything too crazy with that, for sure. Okay. We can do one more question here in period 1. We'll keep it simple. Kyle asks, where did Rantanen's nickname Moose originate from? As far as I know, it comes from a story where when Mikko finally signed his contract in the preseason last year, Jared Bednar talked to, I believe it was Landeskog on the bench, and told him that the Big Moose is back.
Yeah.
So that was the origin point of, at least to the public knowledge, of Mikko's nickname of Big Moose.
Yeah.
I don't know how long the locker room has been calling him that.
I had never heard him referred to as a Big Moose in the locker room.
So a very spur of the moment a nickname for Mikko on that one. Yeah. All right. We can take our first period break there, as we are brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 rated sportsbook app out there. You can head on over there. Use code DNVR when you sign up to get your opportunity to turn $1 into $100. Bet on any NBA team to win their game and hit a single three-pointer in that game. If they do that, you win $100 in bets. So jump on it right now. There's that great deal. There's a bunch of other amazing deals at DraftKings Sportsbook, whether it be hockey, basketball, baseball, football, cycling, tons of other sports as well. They have you covered with all the bets that your heart desires. Again, use that DNVR code when you get there to get the odds boosts, and let them know that we sent you over there. For a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. We are also brought to you by Gabby Insurance. If you're looking for a little money to throw over to DraftKings, you can use Gabby to save a ton on your home and auto insurance. They, on average, will save users $961, and I think everyone that has used it in the DNVR community has saved at least a couple of $100, and in some cases, well over $1,000. So it's a great way to just take a look and see. You can sign up and get checked by Gabby completely free to see where you can save money on home and auto insurance. That's gabi.com/DNVR. Again, support us, support our partners. You know the drill. Check them out for free and save yourself a bunch of cash. Of course, another thing you could spend that cash on is a membership to us here at DNVR. Bunch of amazing articles and tons of beats to talk about for DNVR. You get a bunch of free shirts, which, by the way, a couple people have been asking about it. The 4 Norrisman shirts just came in today. They've been a little delayed, but they're getting shipped out today. So you can expect your amazing t-shirts very, very soon here. If you haven't bought a 4 Norrisman t-shirt, go check it out. They're pretty cool. I will say that. One of our best shirts, in my opinion. Either way, DNVR, we're pretty cool. I like us. I hope you like us too if you're listening to this. So maybe, consider supporting us. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. AJ, since we were talking about us, let's answer this question now. Talking Avs Pucks asks, why is there no DNVR Rapids? Or at least a DNVR Soccer if you don't want to cover MLS, things like European leagues, etc.
Some of it is tepid interest.
Yep.
Just think about the Rapids,
Yep.
It's just not something that, it's something we absolutely want to get to one of these days. We took the plunge on, we didn't feel like we could cover CU without also covering CSU.
Yep.
And that has ruffled the feathers of some at DU and Air Force.
Yep.
But we would like to cover those, we would love to have some sort of DU coverage and to slowly expand that web out into other things. I would say for right now, the Mammoth, we'd love to cover the Mammoth too.
Yep.
That would be, so it's also something that we would love to do. But if you're going to give somebody a full-time job covering that organization, more than 4 people have to subscribe to read it.
Right.
Like
there's only a finite amount of resources
exactly,
that any company has to do things, and at the end of the day, a business can't just be sinking money into things that aren't profitable. Like, let's be honest.
Right. Like, we have to kind of pick and choose our spots still. While we've enjoyed a great deal of growth over the last couple of years, our staff has expanded greatly. Like, we'd love to get into this stuff, but it's a lot of, what are we spending time on? What are we getting out of it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, businesses have to make choices. We still have to make enough money to pay the people that we already have. So,
yep,
we'll see. Those are all things that we absolutely want to get to, though.
For sure. Bigger and better as we hopefully continue to grow.
Oh, yeah. And I have to resist the temptation to take the mammoth job myself, because I'm on staff probably the biggest legit lacrosse fan. So
I don't even think it's that close.
You never know, but I don't think it is either.
I'm thinking like other beats that we would have. You for lacrosse. Dre, I think, did the Rapids for a little while back when.
Yeah, he did the Rapids.
But he would be the biggest football fan, I think, on the squad.
Yeah.
You could give me the esports beat, but that's not really Colorado related.
How many times have we talked about that?
Yeah.
We would love to get to have an
esports team. Yeah.
A DNVR esports team where we have them, where we invest in we have teams across different esports,
Yep.
You have
CSGO,
your CSGO team. You have
StarCraft. Hold on.
We're not gonna waste money on that.
Dead game.
Why you gotta say that shit? But no, we have dreams on where we are going to expand coverage.
It's just about the realities of what's feasible and when it's feasible for the most part.
And yeah, the Cronkies do have an Overwatch team.
I forget which team it was. I want to say that was Dallas's or something, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The Overwatch League is also not doing very well, but
Overwatch 2.
Yep.
Someday.
Dude, Among Us, just DNVR Among Us would still be dope. That's something that we need to just do once this season's over and we have free time again.
Yeah. We should immediately switch into esports as soon as the Avs end. Take a week off and then esports.
There we go. Now we're talking. All right. Next question. This one is pretty straightforward from Mike. After the acquisitions, who are your round one starters on defense? We've mentioned this before. Obviously, Makar, Taves, Gerard. They're locked into the lineup no matter what. You went out and got Nemeth. You throw him in Graves. That leaves one spot, which expectations are assuming health. Byram.
Yep.
And to play off of that question, and this, I want to take a little bit of a longer outlook on this as well. But there is a question from someone, from DB. Nope, that's the wrong person. Sorry, from another Kyle, different Kyle.
Kyle.
Yeah, other Kyle. If Timmins shows well, any chance he overtakes Byram's spot? And more longer term, is there a realistic way that he gets into the Avs top six as an everyday player?
First question, no. There isn't really any chance that Timmins overtakes Byram. Byram showed way too well defensively as a teenager.
Yep.
And given the results and the strength of Colorado's defense in producing offense, the fact that they just don't need Bo and Byram to produce points for them is spectacular. It really shows you what they've been able to do. But his level of defense was exceptional. It was very, very good.
Yeah, I think that's the most exciting thing, because I remember, AJ, you were digging into this a couple of weeks ago, and yes, it's a small sample size for Byram, of course, but
it's like what, 14 games or something.
But the numbers he's put up in those 14 games, this isn't a situation of, oh, those are really good defensive numbers for a 19-year-old. Those are just really good defensive numbers for any NHL defender.
Yep.
So Byram is in a role that works excellently for the Avs when he's healthy.
19 games played. Byram's Corsi is 56. His expected goals for percentage is 52. Scoring chance for percentage is 54. High danger chance percentage is the only bad one at 48.89%.
Yep.
And in the raw numbers, it's 44 for, 46 against. So pretty close. And a PDO that suggests he's been just a hair unlucky with the offense.
Rock solid.
And predictably sheltered.
Of course.
59% ozone starts and such. But it also just matched the eye test. He was really good defensively. He got back defensively. He broke plays up wonderfully. His recovery was great. And when he didn't need his recovery, his ability to move pucks out of his own zone, it was on his stick and off. Byram was, for a 19-year-old, Byram was really, really impressive. And if he was playing on a different team in a bigger role and had he stayed healthy, I think he absolutely, and he was producing those kinds of underlying numbers, he would be an analytics darling and the internet would be all over him.
Yep.
But because he's just more of the same on Colorado's absurd defense, while they are a possession powerhouse,
Elite is just another one of the guys on the FC core.
it really, like, he's just another one of the dudes that rolled in there and like is producing absurd numbers.
Yep.
So Timmins, I don't think Timmins will outplay him, but can Timmins find a spot in the long-term top 6? I think absolutely yes. I just don't know what it looks like. Like next year, assume that they don't lose anybody in expansion off the defense.
Sure.
Just for argument's sake.
Sure.
And on the left side, you'll have some combination, Taves, Gerard, Byram, and Graves. And then on the right side, you have McCarr. Johnson is still around, and Timmins.
Yeah.
Well, some decisions will obviously have to be made and move some things around. But that's kind of the depth chart. And Jacob McDonald will also still be under contract, so he'll be involved. So we'll just see. He needs more nights like last night where he gets into the lineup and he shows well. He gives the staff a reason to
play
bring him back in.
Yeah.
So, because he low-key, Timmins had played like 16 or 17 games, something like that, and he just hadn't done a lot. In most of those games, he just didn't do very much.
Yep. And
he started to look a lot better, and then he got hurt again, which is always the story with him. So,
well, then, I mean, it's a consequence of chances too, right? Because Timmins gets hurt, and then along comes Jacob McDonald, who looks like a man possessed in his call-up opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reality of the NHL is you only get so many chances at the can to prove that you have it.
Yeah.
Now, Timmins is young. He'll get plenty of more chances. I'm not worried about that. In fact, I think he'll be an NHLD on at least a handful of teams in the league right now.
Well, and to be honest, I think he's going to be a coveted name in the summer.
Which brings me to my next question from TB, or rather DB. I can say letters. For next season, start, keep, trade. Bowers, Kaut, and Timmins.
You said start?
Start, meaning NHL roster opening night.
Okay.
Keep, meaning still in the organization. And trade, meaning trade.
And those, what was the list?
Bowers, Kaut, and Timmins.
Kaut's in the NHL.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I agree.
Bowers is my keep, and Timmins is my trade.
Yep, that's
Timmins
where I'm at with it too.
Timmins is you attach a nice prospect to a contract that you're comfortable losing, and you move him to a team for I don't know what, honestly. Something
for the piece that fits, right? Yeah.
Something long term, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how you entice Washington to give you a goaltender again. And that's how you want to solve your problem in that. You offer up a young defender like Timmins. Go from there. I don't know.
Yep.
But I think Timmins is the kind of guy that there's going to be a lot of interest around him in the summer. And I think that the Avs are going to be tempted.
At least explore options.
Yeah, I think there will be opportunity for them to do something big. Revolving around Timmins. Something, maybe not something like big, but something meaningful.
Yep. Next question comes from Joey. Ranch or blue cheese, AJ?
Ranch.
All right. We don't have to fight. Glad we're in agreement on that.
I like blue cheese on the occasional thing, but too many times I've had like weird experiences with blue cheese where I'm just like, well, this overpowered everything, and this became a blue cheese meal.
I feel like weird is the exact correct word for blue cheese.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, some blue cheese is fine, but if you get too much blue cheese, it starts to taste kind of bad.
Well, for me, it just overpowers stuff.
Yeah.
It's a dominant flavor. And so if you get too much of it, you're just like, oh, what else am I eating? What else is in here? Because all I'm tasting is blue cheese. So, with ranch, I'm good.
I don't get that reference, so
yeah,
I have no idea. Sorry.
Ranch. The thing with ranch though is that like there's no high end, right? Like you're never
there's no this is the pinnacle of taste. Yeah,
this ranch is incredible. Like it is your safe option.
Yep.
It is the thing that you do when you're just like, well, got some wings here and would like to dip it into something, right? Totally safe. So ranch. Also, you can dipping pizza into ranch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what's up.
It's good.
It's not something I started doing until like the last couple of years, and it was just like, yeah. That's the ranch way more versatile than blue cheese.
Definitely.
Blue cheese has like a lane that it lives in, and ranch is like,
just put me on whatever. It's fine.
Try it with these 12 different things and see how it goes.
Oh, man.
So, yeah.
All right. We can take our second period break there. Brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee, the CBD-infused coffee that has really changed lives. You can try it now and get 25% off when you use code DNVR25 for your first purchase. Also, check out the DNVR bar. They have Strava Cold Brew on tap there as well. It's not a tap. It's in a fridge because, it's cold brew. But, yeah, Strava Craft. Go give them a try. Support them. They're dope. CBD's dope. Also brought to you by Chevalier Mortgage. Both Mike and Virginia have been in the big business for a very long time, and they'll get you a great rate, yes, but also Mike is a certified financial planner. So he will look at your entire picture when it comes to getting the right home loan for you. They're small, family-owned, local, kind of like us here at DNVR. So you can reach them at dnvrmortgage.com, or you can sign up for a free consultation and your chance to win a free DNVR piece of merch. Why not just do it for the free stuff? You can also call Virginia directly at 303-257-6578. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631. And last but certainly not least, we are having a DNVR rugby beat for a while now. The Colorado XOs. Did you just stub your toe again?
Yes.
All right. Well, don't be like AJ. Check out the Colorado XOs, not stub their toes. They're currently 3-1, and their concept is taking players from different backgrounds, including football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, soccer, and track and field, athletes with the necessary skills to excel at the game of rugby, and giving them a try on one of the biggest stages, at least in American rugby. So check them out today at Rugbytown USA. That's down in Glendale at Infinity Park. You can check them out at Infinity Park at glendale.com. Go figure. And go follow the DNVR Rugby account on Twitter. Colton Strickler does amazing content regularly and behind the scenes talking to these guys.
He actually has breaking news today.
Bam! Look at that. I don't know.
Today's a good day. Today's a good day to start that up.
So there you go. Go find out whatever the breaking news is for the DNVR rugby beat and the whole rugby situation here in Colorado. It's an awesome place to pick up rugby. They have the United States national team. They work here in Colorado. So it's a pretty darn high level stuff.
I was really surprised at what a big deal rugby was in Colorado.
Yeah, it's surprising.
Well, I mean, we talked about earlier in the show, we talked about the Rapids and other beats and stuff. But
there's more uptick for rugby than any of that stuff.
Yeah, finding out that the rugby, there was so much with the rugby when it was the Raptors and then it was the national team. So
yep.
Now we're in the world with the XOs.
What up?
Yeah.
Third period of this DNVR Avalanche podcast. Let's get to the title of the show. I think the most interesting question we got today, or rather, it became the most interesting question. We've answered the main question before that comes from Speeve. I'm assuming that's Steve spelled with a P for some reason. When listening to the broadcast last night, Altitude mentioned that there had been no better passing winger than Tanguay. Do you see the Avs retiring number 40? I think both AJ and I agree that the answer to that is no. Tanguay is very much a Hall of Very Good player, and he spent barely over half of his career with Colorado. He doesn't really hit any of the landmarks that would signify him as a player that should have his number retired by the organization. But that brings me to the question of what are some of those milestones that you think are deserving of a number retirement? Because you look at Colorado's retired numbers. First of all, you have Ray Bourque. That's a very specific case, and I'm on record saying I don't think the Avs should have retired his number.
To be honest, that's the majority opinion.
Yeah, it's not unusual to think that. And then you have Forsberg, Sakic. 3 Hall of Fame players, easy retirements. Mm-hmm. In the case of Sakic, spent his entire career with this organization. Forsberg spent all of the good years of his career with this organization. Patrick Waugh, the greatest goaltender ever, helped him to win 2 Stanley Cups. Then you have the 2 more interesting conversations of Milan Hajduk and Adam Foote.
Franchise icons.
Right.
Milan Hajduk, kind of the Avalanche version of Shane Doan.
Yep.
That type of guy.
Played his entire career here. Yep.
But an all-timer, played the whole career in one spot, was captain, lived through all the good and bad.
The only player in Avs history to play 1,000 games, because Sakic's games are technically with Quebec to get to that number. Mm-hmm. That leads the team in a handful of statistics. That anything that isn't led by Sakic or Forsberg is led by Hajduk, basically.
Yeah.
So that one I think makes perfect sense to me, and same thing with Foote to a certain extent. For the Avs saw a great defenseman come through in Blake and Bourque, but Adam Foote was Colorado's defenseman, right?
Yeah. So he was on both cup-winning teams. An icon, also a captain later in his career. Came back and just was one of those guys. Was integral to the highest level of success. And I don't know, just again, like a franchise icon.
So I guess my question is, how do you quantify that? because I'm already seeing someone in chat here talk about shouldn't the only numbers be retired are the ones in the Hall of Fame.
No.
And I would agree with you on that. I have no problems with both Hayduk and Foot's number being retired for the Avalanche, but
yeah, I think those are both easy yeses.
Right.
Because those are among the best player, like up until this current group.
Yep.
Adam Foote's the best defenseman in Avalanche history.
As far as long-term Avs players, sure.
Yeah. You know, like obviously Blake and Bork, I think, were better. I think it's easy to say they were better NHL players, but not better Avs.
Yep.
You know, Blake, they were fine.
So because here's
they were fine. They each had top 3 finishes for the Norris and won a Stanley Cup together. Like pretty good stuff.
But again, where do you quantify the line? Because you and I both agree that no, Tanguay's number shouldn't be retired.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere in between franchise icon and Hall of Very Good Player.
Yeah, like look, if Alex Tanguay had played his entire career in Colorado and still had the same success, 1,000 games played, 800 points scored, he'd be retired.
Yep. But he moved on. He didn't
easily.
He didn't play for the Avs for a significant portion of that. So
like easily Tanguay would have been a retired number, but as it was, I mean, just under 600 games played with the Avs, just under 500 points with the Avs. You're talking about Landeskog, like basically Landeskog's career.
I think,
assume Landeskog never plays another game for the Avs after this, and that's it.
Yeah.
But he also has no cups, he won the Calder, but that was it.
Yep.
Would you retire Gabe Landeskog's jersey today? No. Absolutely not.
It's the same kind of comparison. Paul Stastny has very similar numbers.
Yeah.
To what Alex Tanguay did in Colorado. And there's no way anyone's retiring Paul Stastny's number, right?
He would have been on that again had he stayed.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If his entire career is in Colorado, it's a different conversation.
Yeah,
but
you have a different conversation for the guy that plays 1,200 games for you.
Yep.
But as it is, it's an easy no. You're like, no, I'm not. You're talking about nobody will ever get to wear that jersey again.
Right.
Barring a very special, like when Peyton Manning came to Denver kind of exception.
Yep.
You know, like something
another
absurd.
Hall of Fame level player.
like I'm saying, like a very special exception here.
Father-son kind of situation.
That number never gets worn again in your franchise's history.
Yep.
You know, and assuming that hockey is still around 150 years from now,
ain't gonna be no numbers left if you're retiring those dudes. Yeah,
you've got to be a little picky about some of these numbers that you retire. You know, like Valerie Kamensky was great, but no. The answer is obviously no. Eric Johnson, the answer is obviously no.
Yep.
And that's like EJ's been a great Av, but maybe had he stayed healthy and he at least got to rack up games played. But
then it'd be tough. And as the chat is mentioning here, it's impossible to take out the qualitative part of it because EJ was the face of a defense when the Avs were awful.
Yeah.
And you can't really separate the two, despite EJ not being an awful player by any means. He was the best defender for them for years by a long shot. But it's hard to detach from the hockey team around the player a lot of the time as well.
Yeah, and it sucks, for EJ that they're finally good just as he kind of got old on them.
Yeah.
But Eric Johnson's second in the Avs among defensemen in games played.
Yep.
And he's almost 200 behind Adam Foote still.
It's not
because of the injuries,
because
he just so much time was lost. I don't know if EJ finishes out his career in Colorado. Like, say he finishes out the current contract, and then say he plays another 3 or 4 years after that.
All he has to do is play to his 40s, and then maybe it's a conversation.
I just don't, I just don't see a route where Erik Johnson gets his number retired. He just didn't have that high.
Yep.
Even if the guy wins a Stanley Cup and actually like plays, and say he plays out his contract, the Avs win a Stanley Cup next year, he plays in it and he skates the cup around and all that, right? Amazing moment for him, all good and well. He's like their 4th or 5th best defenseman on that team.
Yep.
At that point, like he's compromised enough as a player where he's not like the star, the face of it. EJ, like the ship sailed.
Yep. Sanis Ozolinsh, not particularly close. It's
Sanis Ozolinsh, like 300 games played.
Yep.
In Colorado. Like, no, the answer is no.
You have to understand that like a player like Peter Forsberg is an extreme anomaly.
Right. I mean, you're talking, and so like Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, Patrick Waugh are 3 of the top probably 20 to 30 players of all time.
Ever. Yeah. And I say Peter Forsberg specifically because people look at him and say, oh, well, he only played, 550 games for the Avs or something? And yes, he didn't have longevity in his career, but there is a case that he was the best player in the world during the peak of his career.
Yeah. I mean, McKinnon has 20 more games played.
Yep.
As an Av than Forsberg did.
So...
And the funny part is that Forsberg has 150 points on him.
Right. And that's why Peter Forsberg's in the Hall of Fame and retired, despite not having that longevity.
Yeah. Well, and like Forsberg went into the Hall of Fame with one of the lower games played thresholds because he was just
that good. Yeah.
He was just a special talent.
Yep.
Funny enough, same thing with Eric Lindros.
Yep.
But like those guys, it's easy. And you look at the current team, and you can see paths for them
for sure.
Like you can see, like Nathan McKinnon is easily on the
Hall of Fame track. Yeah,
if he gets to if he signs the next contract, and let's just assume that it's an 8-year deal. His next deal is an 8-year deal, and he plays until he is 34, 35 years old, and he continues at this kind of pace for the next couple of years. Then eventually he slows down and chills out because he gets old and he stops being such a dominant skater and all that stuff, right? And he seriously threatens Sakic's 1,015 points with the Avs.
Yep.
Like, you have to think that he's going to seriously threaten it.
Yeah,
He is absolutely
a great opportunity to hold every offensive record for the team by the time.
Exactly. Like, and you, even if he does not make that, even if he say he gets to 950 points or something, and he retires.
Yep.
And say there's at least one cup in there.
Yeah.
His jersey's getting retired.
Yeah, it's a lock. It's a lock for sure.
Like, his jersey is getting retired.
Yep.
Now, Landeskog, I think we actually talked about this on a post-game podcast a couple weeks ago, but Landeskog's another one where
I think that was like 3 months ago, but yeah.
all-time Av.
Yep. If he signs this next deal to stay in Colorado for the next 5 years or whatever,
only plays, he has a very Haydukian career.
Yeah,
he plays 1,000 games with the team. He scores 700-800 points. He's captain that entire time.
Yeah,
he wins 1 or 2 cups. Like, yes, he is like 92 will go in the rafters.
Yep.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yep.
And then like you get into okay, well, what about Cale Makar? Cale Makar again, obviously, is on that path. It's very, very, very early. There are a lot of injuries to go.
You're right. There's a talk of longevity there.
But it's easy. It's easy to see where Cale Makar is headed. The interesting ones are Rantanen and Girard.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think Rantanen's that interesting.
I would again say it's on that track.
He is very quickly drifting from it was interesting to this is a lock if he stays healthy territory.
He just has to keep it up, man.
Yep.
Like, no pressure. You just have to be a point per game player for the next 6 years.
Yeah, I know it's easy to say that, but Girard, I think, is extremely interesting, though.
Girard is going to be the one where, like, you look at defenseman numbers already with Sam Girard, okay?
Yep.
And this is also, they have one, I'm just going to say, they have one real jersey retired on defense, and that's Adam Foote.
Yep.
Sam Girard is 9th in scoring in Avalanche history. Okay, 9th already. He's 1 point behind Marty Skula, so probably gonna pass that. Next year he passes Brett Clark, and then
and then a ways to go to some bigger names,
and then he starts to get into the Blake Johnson, Foote, Ozolinsh chase.
Yep.
Blah 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 blah. As long as he finishes his contract out, he probably passes Tyson Barrie.
Yep, I think so.
In points. He still has 200 points to go, so there's some projection there. But look, if he becomes a 50-point guy, he passes Tyson Barrie comfortably.
Yeah.
Comfortably. And it becomes a showdown, him versus Makar. Who's gonna end up with the record at the end? Who stays the longest, right?
Yep.
Who's gonna have the longevity? Because if you look at it, Sam Girard already 18th amongst Avs defensemen in games played. 260 now. 261 is not like a ton, but again, consider his age. Consider the fact that he is signed for the next 6 seasons already.
Yep.
And we're not even having the next conversation chat about that, right? Like, yep. You're already like he's signed through his 20s. His next deal is when he's 30 years old, basically. So he's gonna pass all these guys. Like, I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna assume that no lockouts and no more pandemics.
No more bullshit to end NHL seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. 492 games starting next year. He can play 492 games possible in his contract.
And there's a very real possibility that he plays all of those based on his track record.
He's already got the Iron Man thing going on. So
yeah.
He's got 261 games played right now. Let's just assume he doesn't play any more this year. That puts him at 753. That leaves him 7 shy of Adam Foote. Yeah. So as long as Girard finishes this year and then plays obviously the vast majority of those games, he's going to track down Adam Foote on this contract. He's gonna be right in that area for most games played as an Avs defenseman ever. And by the end of that, he will have passed Tyson Barrie for highest scoring Avs defenseman ever.
Yep.
All of those records, like we're not talking about retiring Tyson Barrie's number in Colorado, of course, but when Sam Girard is sitting on almost 800 games played as an Av, and he's sitting on 500 career points, you're starting to get into that conversation where you're like, this guy has been an icon for you. And again, if we're assuming a cup or two for all the other dudes, he gets a cup or two.
What?
Like Sam, like there's a world where you can see how Sam Girard ends up as like one of the retired numbers.
What happens to those numbers though if Makar has 200 less games played and significantly more points?
Repeat that.
What happens to? Do people look at Girard's numbers differently if Makar is significantly ahead of him?
I mean, because I think you're talking. I think at that point you would be in the Makar is a Hall of Famer conversation.
Yeah,
and Girard is probably not.
Yeah, I don't think Girard is either. Chat. Someone's talking about Adam Deadmarsh. No universe is Deadmarsh a retired number.
Yeah, if they were going to do that for Adam Deadmarsh, it would have happened. The answer is no.
If you're retiring Adam Deadmarsh, you have to talk about retiring like Matt Duchene, and that is obviously a no.
Yeah, like he was like being a fan favorite is all good and well, but Adam Deadmarsh he already has been passed by Mikko Rantanen in points.
Yep, is not particularly high on the games played ladder either. Barely in the top 20.
Yeah, like there's nothing that says Adam Deadmarsh fan favorite. Adam Deadmarsh is as a retired number. Come on, you're never gonna let somebody wear that number again because Adam Deadmarsh wore it. Like again, if you were gonna do that, it would have happened.
Yep.
You wouldn't have let 19 guys fucking wear it and get concussions after that.
All right. So I don't think we came up with a solid numbers conclusion, but I do think we came up with a conclusion that you can't. Yeah.
You have to be, look, you have to have longevity and like major. Eric Johnson's longevity isn't good enough. So it's got to be some level of longevity, right? An undefined amount, but
I mean, it's a balancing scale, right? Like, in Peter Forsberg's case, you don't need longevity because the level of play is the sky.
Sure. If you are the absolute, like if you're gonna go through life scoring 1.5 points per game, like any longevity they get out of you is a bonus.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. It is like, there's a talent level that has to be balanced. There's a longevity level that has to be balanced. There's how much time did you spend with this team specifically? There's a lot of factors that go in. There's no one mold that a retired number can fit into.
Yep. It's also just one of those things where it's like, you know it.
Yep.
Like
there's a feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's a certain profile that you can just look at and you can be like, well, did he play for the organization for a really long time? Okay, great. Now we start with that. All right. Well, Cody McLeod played for the Avs for a really long time. All right. Well, was he a great player? No. Nope. He was not a great player. So then you move on. Yep. I mean, there has to be a combination of longevity and excellence. And it would really, 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 really help if the teams that you're on
was good.
Something.
Yeah.
Like, is Claude Giroux one of the great flyers of all time? Yeah, absolutely. Like, does he deserve to have his jersey retired in Flyers history, even though he's never going to win a Stanley Cup? Like, probably, yeah.
I would say, yeah.
That's one of their great players.
Yep. Sometimes you just know.
You know what's crazy? I'm just looking at this. Let me do all skaters.
Oh boy, here we go.
In Avalanche history, among guys who have played 80 games, to filter out like some
the dude with one game and like two goals or like something.
Like Theo Fleury, who had like 24 points in 16 games.
Yeah.
Like to filter those guys out. The top 13 in points per game in Avs history. 1, 2, 4 of those guys are on the current team.
I believe that.
McKinnon is third in Avs history at 0.97, Rantanen at 0.93, Makar at 0.92. So 3 of the top 5 are on the current team.
That's pretty good.
And Landeskog is 13th at 0.74. Surrounded by Sandis Osalinch, P.A. Parento, and Andre Burakovsky. Nazem Kadri's 20th.
Team's pretty okay.
Jonas Donsko is 29th.
That's wild.
Yeah. Points per game. Cale Makar has 81 points in 88 career games.
Yep. What's the next defenseman even on this list?
Ozelunch. Or Bork
I guess
had
Bork. Yeah.
Bork had 73 and 94, and then Ozelunch had 253 and 333. 0.76 points per game over 333 games, man. Ozo was the shit. I still think he's one of the most underrated Avs ever.
Fair enough.
Just forget how exceptional he was.
I mean, his breed was much more rare in that day and age too. Now
frowned upon.
Right. Now every team has at least one, if not two or three of that guy. But yeah, a lot of people didn't like Ozo because he didn't play proper defense back in the day.
Yeah.
We did have a couple more questions I wanted to get to.
Yeah, let's tackle that.
Thoughts on Soderberg killing penalties? Is it something we're likely to see a lot of, or was it more of a function of Donskoy being out of the lineup? I expect to see a lot of it, just given that the Avs like him there. I don't get it. I wouldn't do it, but the Avs like it, so I think you're going to see it.
Agreed.
Simple enough. This one, off the top of your head, AJ, I don't want to spend a lot of time looking this up. I looked up some of them, and I'm curious just who comes to your head. If you can name 10, great. Your 10 best prospects who haven't played in the NHL yet that have been drafted.
That haven't played in the NHL.
Correct.
Just in terms of 10 best or the 10 guys that I find most interesting?
Let's say your 10 most interesting because that's more interesting.
Moritz Seider.
Yeah.
Alex Turcotte.
Yeah.
I am so curious. I am so curious about the Alex Turcotte thing. Both the goalies, Askarov and Knight.
Yep.
Let me see. Peyton Krebs.
Yep. On the Krebs note, I will say I think the entire conversation around Caulfield, Newhook, and Krebs is incredibly interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting what if.
Yeah.
Several years down the line, especially knowing that two footnotes from that, and I know I've brought them up before, but I will take this opportunity to reiterate them.
Yep.
Had Caulfield been taken, or had Caulfield been on the board for the Avs,
they like
Newhook had been taken, they would have taken Krebs.
Yep.
Which would have been interesting.
What a universe.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe Caulfield goes to Vegas then. They get another.
You'll never know, right? Yeah.
What I am really the other aspect of that is what if Doc had been an Av as was the plan.
Yeah.
Byram goes to Chicago. Doc goes to Colorado. Does Newhook still go at 16?
Do they
try
and find a D there?
Or do they go with the D, or do they go with Krebs and say these are our centers for the future? This is our 1, 2, 3 going down the middle, and they're just dominant at that point.
Well, I mean, the spiral effect is what we know. They liked Schneider this last year. Are they more aggressive about that if they don't have Byram? I mean,
true.
It's so it goes so quick how the entire universe changes.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know how many I'm at, but a couple of others. Philip Hollander, because that was the guy taken with the pick that the Avs traded down.
Yep.
So that's just a personal, I'm just curious.
Let's see what happens. Yeah.
From a selfish perspective, Cole Perfetti.
Yeah, that would be
him in Winnipeg is certainly an interesting conversation. I don't want to spend too much time on last year's guys, the 2020 guys.
Yeah, sure.
All of them, right?
Is it really fair? So few of them have played. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Tomasino.
Yeah,
a guy that I loved and ended up in Nashville. Really curious to see how like Nashville comes together with more dynamic type talents. Tomasino, Tolvanen, etc.
Down the line.
The return for the first Taylor Hall deal, Kevin Ball. Curious how that goes.
Yeah.
Just again, more of like a curiosity, a thing that I would like to see. And then last guy that I'll name, Scott Perunovich. Really interested because like a fucking crazy awesome college career. Like just a dominant college career.
Yeah.
And curious how he ends up as curious where he ends up on the spectrum in the NHL. Because we've seen some of those guys, like Will Butcher ended his career as a dominant defender and is hanging on for dear life in New Jersey. Cale Makar was a dominant defender and is a dominant NHL player now.
Yep.
So it's like there's a huge range for Scott Perunovich to fit somewhere in there. And I'm really curious, especially in St. Louis, exactly how that goes. So, sorry, if I took too long on that.
No, that was great. That was a great answer. Much appreciated. As
a person who likes prospects, those are all guys I think are interesting.
Yeah, I love it. I love the in-depth answers. I know we haven't talked much to our live chat yet, so I'm curious if they have any questions that we can wrap up the show with.
Most of the ones that I've seen are ones that we have touched on over and over and over time, or we touched on earlier in the show.
Yeah, either go back and rewatch this show if you joined late, or go search our podcast history for some of the more common questions for sure.
I mean, it's easy to think that this is the low right now in this current season, right? Like I've talked about how there's kind of a letdown after long winning streak ends. And the Avs, to be honest with you, the Avs haven't played particularly well in their last 5 games.
Yep.
They just happen to win 4 of them.
Yep.
Is this what the low looks like? Well, I think we're going to really get an idea of what the low could look like because Devin Dubnyk is your starting goaltender for the next 2 weeks. The 30th, they will have to go through the Vegas series with Devin Dubnyk and Jonas Johansson as their guys.
Yep, that's just reality.
I think that's going to be really, 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 really interesting. Because it just means once again the best on best we won't get. You know, the last head-to-head series that these two teams had in Denver, there was no Alex Pietrangelo.
Yep.
The first one was a combination of
a mess of outdoor games coming off of COVID breaks and all sorts of nonsense.
The COVID pause, injury issues, outdoor game, all of that shit was going on. So somehow these teams are going to play 8 times during the regular season, and we will have not seen any true like best on best in a normal situation until maybe the postseason.
In addition to Caps goalies, would you consider Nedeljkovic?
I would consider a lot of options if we really, really wanted to get in depth. What do the Avs, if Philipp Grubauer does not return to the Avs, there's an entire league's worth of options. It's not just what's in free agency to sign. It's a Freddie Anderson. It's going out and try and trade for a Caps goalie. Try and trade for a goalie from another team. There's an entire league's worth of options.
That's absolutely a show we'll do this offseason if it's reality.
Yep. Well, I mean, even if it's not, before he signs an extension, that's a conversation we have to engage in.
Yeah. If there aren't more pressing things like a Stanley Cup run to talk about, for sure.
Yeah, well, it also does depend because if they're in a cup run, we are going to have very, very little time from the time that the cup finals finish
to free agency, to draft, to everything. Yeah.
Z and I were talking this morning about how crazy the schedule is, and how in something like a span of 8 days, they go from here's your expansion draft list, which is going to matter, to the open of free agency, with everything on the league schedule happens in between then.
Yep.
The expansion draft happens, the draft happens, free agency opens, all the teams make all their moves.
Yep.
The entire league reshapes itself in a week.
It's going to be a hell of a week, and then AJ and I are going to sleep for a month.
Yeah, we legitimately might take like 4 days off and just be like, we're out.
Do you think,
like the Avs, we have been on
the war
nonstop?
Yeah, the drumbeat never ends
since February 20th. So this is our day off. Off.
Straight up. Do you think Gerard re-signs after his current contract? There's no way to predict that far out what the Avs are even going to look like. So
that's 6 years from now.
Yeah.
Go back 6 years and tell me what the Avs look like today.
Tell
me how close you get.
What, 4 players? Not even 4 players on the team now that were on the team 6 years ago. McKinnon, Len Landeskog, and EJ is EJ. It. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. No, Soderberg wouldn't have been here 6 years ago, would he?
He might have been.
And even that's a weird one because they just brought
that
him
was
back.
that was a Wah move.
Yeah.
I actually was the one that broke that signing.
Bam.
I remember because it was like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Swedish time.
And it was like, oh, the Avs signed him to a 6-year deal or whatever it was. I was barely awake when I wrote that story.
Which team improves next year, or which team improves more next year, LA or Ottawa?
I think LA has the bigger advantage because it's got the better goaltender right now.
Yeah.
I have more faith in Cal Peterson than Matt Murray.
Me too.
So I think that's their X factor.
Matt Murray's going to be a problem for Ottawa for the foreseeable future.
But I think that when you look at what Ottawa could be adding to their roster, I believe Jacob Bernard-Docker just made his NHL debut last night.
I think
so. Yeah. You add that guy, you add Jake Sanderson, you throw in a full season of Tim Stützle. Shane Pinto is there. They just signed Mads Sogard, although that's probably more of a long-term thing.
They're going to get another high-end pick this year.
Yeah, right. Like maybe they add another guy this year. I don't know what's going on with Lassie Thompson, but if they add that guy to their defense, then they can remake their entire defense over with prospects. And if you look at LA, like LA has done a really good job of building an intriguing farm system. But their biggest weakness in LA is that they really haven't done much on defense. It was like they were like, Tobias Bjornfot, done.
Very weird choices there for sure.
Because if you go and you look, like
pretty thin, yeah.
2017, the highest drafted guy was Mikey Anderson, who is a revelation for them, by the way.
He's been great for them. Yeah.
He is the shit. He is couple of guys that I think are the most underrated in the NHL. Mikey Anderson and Zach Whitecloud. Those guys are so damn good. But then you go through like what have they been drafting? They have an entire draft class in 2018. They didn't draft a single defenseman.
Yeah.
2019, again, Tobias Bjornfot. That was kind of it. And then the fourth round on, maybe those guys become something. This last year, Helge Grans and Brock Faber. I really like Brock Faber.
That's good because I don't like Helge Grans at all.
I don't either. But those guys are both several years away. Is what I'm saying. Like they've done a great job of building up the farm system, but they haven't done anything on defense.
Yep.
You just have to take more shots than that on defense.
Well, we've seen how hard it is to go get defensemen in free agency for years and years and years and years. It comes at a premium cost, whether it be in contract price or if you're trading for one in value of the trade.
Yeah, and like they've built up a great farm system that can go and get help on the back end. But when you look at how the two teams have built, I like what Ottawa's done better. I like the team that builds from the back end out.
For sure.
Like, and then like, what's the big feather in their cap would be the franchise. So they have Tim Stützle, who might end up, like, there's a good chance that he ends up better than Quentin Byfield in the NHL.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Couple other questions we'll answer really quick here, and then we'll get out of here. Would you guys prefer Avs to dip into free agency or go with prospects next year? The answer for both of us is prospects. It's been our answer for a long time, but
and the answer is probably a mixture of
both for sure. Like, yeah, it's look, Cout's an easy plug and play for us. Newhook's an easy plug and play for us. You still have a forward spot you can fill there with Bowers, but there's also a reality of maybe going out and getting a free agent forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a mixture of the two that makes sense.
Yep, I agree with that. Which team gets weaker next year, Vegas or Avs? Avs definitely don't get weaker next year, so I guess Vegas by default.
I mean, Vegas is going to be harder to quantify. They get a year older, right?
Yeah, well, I guess this is true. The only place the Avs get weaker next year, in my opinion, is goaltender.
Well, so a couple of things here. The Avs are losing somebody in expansion, and Vegas is not.
Yeah.
Vegas will not participate in the expansion draft.
Vegas arguably wouldn't mind losing someone, but
sure, but they don't have to deal with it.
That's true.
And Vegas, maybe their biggest concern is that Marc-Andre Fleury turns 37. Alex Pietrangelo turns 32 next year at some point.
Patch isn't getting any younger either.
Patch already turns 33. Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault are both already 30 years old. So their biggest problem with Vegas is that they get a year older.
Yep.
And you know, when you're older, when you're a little older than that, they're not like old. Like this is not like Dallas, you know, where you're just like,
they have a bunch of 37-year-olds on this team now.
Yeah, like half this roster's about to break. It's not like they're not there, but you know, Alex Pietrangelo at 32 years old making $8.8 million. Marc-Andre Fleury at 37 years old making $7 million.
Yep.
Max Pacioretty at 33 years old making $7 million. Like at some point, one of these guys is gonna underperform somewhere on their roster.
Yep.
And it's gonna hurt them because they are, as of right now, they have $75 million committed to an $81.5 million cap. And Alec Martinez is a pending UFA. Thomas Nosek is a pending UFA. Dylan Coughlin is an RFA, and that's like kind of it for meaningful players for them. Yeah. So they aren't like facing a mass exodus or anything. It will largely be the same team.
Yep. But
just a year older.
So will the Avs outside of the player they lose in expansion.
Well, and the big difference with the Avs is that there could be real turnover. They have,
I guess, in the bottom six of their lineup.
Colorado has currently pending free agents, either RFA or UFA for the Avalanche. Guys that matter. I'm not going to get into Liam O'Brien.
Yeah.
Cale Makar, Connor Timmins, Patrick Nemeth, Tyson Jost, Carl Soderberg, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Brandon Saad, Gabe Landeskog, Matt Calvert.
Yeah. I think
like there's a lot of sorry, I forgot all three goaltenders: Jonas Johansson, Devin Dubnyk, Philipp Grubauer. So like they have a lot of decisions to make. They don't have the money to spend on all of them. As of this moment, it looks like they've got a lot of cap space because they are sitting on $24 million to spend in cap room.
Three-quarters of that goes to Makar and Landeskog.
Makar, Landeskog, and then let's just say Grubauer. It's pretty much all gone.
Yep.
So the big turnover for the Avs next year is that you're looking at Bellemare is gone, Soderberg is gone, Saad is gone, Nemeth is gone, Dubnyk is gone, which is okay because they've already got Francouz re-signed. Francouz is ready to rock. So then you're looking on your, okay, well, you have to replace those guys. All right, well, who replaces Patrick Nemeth? It's already probably going to be Graves, a combination of Graves, Timmins, McDonald, and Byram.
If EJ's healthy, whatever.
And EJ, exactly. Like between all the guys that are already pretty much under contract, or they can just give a QO to, and they're completely fine.
I guess the point we're getting at here is a lot of the Avs decisions, there is the option to replace them internally. Whether they take it or not is a question.
That's where you say do the Avs get worse at the start of next year? Probably. They probably take a step back because they probably don't have Brandon Saad. They probably don't have Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. They probably don't have Matt Calvert. Okay, well, who replaces those guys? Let's just go with Alex Newhook, Shane Bowers, and Martin Cow.
Yep.
Are those guys going to be? How good are those guys going to be at the start of next year?
The reality is you don't know. Yeah. Versus how close do they come to their ceilings by the end of the year, whatever. Yeah.
You expect them to be much better players by the end of the season than at the beginning of the season, just because that's what happens with young players who get into the NHL. So I think the easy answer is Colorado takes a step back right away. But you have longer term concerns about Vegas, and Colorado replacing all their older-ish guys with younger guys is not a good thing for Vegas.
Yeah. I mean, if Colorado replaces their lineup with younger guys, and even if Colorado could time stasis the team that they have right now and play it next year, and if they were 43 games into the season with 9 regulation losses, like it's hard to do that 2 years in a row, is what I'm saying, no matter who you're playing.
Definitely.
So, yeah. Are St. Louis's stumbles this year the truth or an off year, and is Arizona finally on the upswing? First of all, don't ever trust Arizona to be on the upswing.
If this is Arizona on the upswing, they're in serious trouble. Because you remember that next year that they are adding, like, take out Vegas from the division, but you add in Dallas, Nashville, and Chicago.
Yep.
Those are all teams that are like Dallas. Dallas will be better next year because they won't be missing Tyler Seguin all season.
And Radulov and Bishop.
Right. Well, and they had the COVID problems at the start of the season. So their entire season has been Colorado's schedule. The playing every other day nonsense. It's been insane. So, no, I'm not worried about Arizona at all because I would take, to be honest with you, I would pick all 3 of those teams over Arizona next year.
I think I would too.
Now, that can change with an entire offseason's worth of work and if Stan Bowman wants to continue doing dumb shit, but even then, like all of those teams today are ahead of Arizona.
Yep.
For me. So I'm not buying Arizona at all. Nashville, I don't know. Nashville, I really don't know how to feel about them ever. Their talent and their play just don't match, and I don't know how to feel about that. And if they ever do, they're going to be a problem.
Nashville remains in limbo until they solidify their goalie situation. Which
I mean, UC Saros has their huge run that they've been on over the last 20 games is because of UC Saros. First and foremost.
But even if Saros is for real, like they still have Askarov coming. Like that doesn't just go away.
But that's the answer. It's solidified, man. UC Saros was bad to start the year. Took a little bit of time off and then came back and has been absolutely phenomenal for the last 6 weeks, 5 weeks. I don't know, 20 games, however long that is. And I'm fine with, I've always been a UC Saros fan. So for me, this is just confirmation bias. I think he's actually good. But how good are the Predators? I like in stacking up in the division next year. The biggest loser here is Minnesota. Minnesota no longer has a free ride.
Yep.
And all of this is started with a question about St. Louis. Well, St. Louis is in a really weird spot because they have some serious money coming off the books. They're going to be able to spend it, but it's not going to be a very good market. And they're arguably their best move might be to just bring back their own guys. How much better do they get? I just don't know.
I mean, the eternal question for me with St. Louis is, who is Jordan Binnington?
Yeah.
Because he's shown flashes of the great goaltender that he was this year, but it's never been in really consistent stretches for them.
Well, and since that huge run, okay, 927 in the regular season, 914 in the postseason, 50 games last year, 912, 31 games this year, 909, 5 playoff games last year, 851.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like he's fine. I think he's an NHL goaltender. I think he might even be an NHL starter.
But is he a cup contending goaltender?
I mean, I don't know. I to be honest with you, I just don't know.
Yeah,
I also wonder, like, St. Louis has gotten a great year out of Justin Falk, out of nowhere. Did he finally turn the corner 10 years into his career, or is this just a fluke? Marco Scandella is getting a little bit older. You know, they've had a major problem with Vince Dunn, who'd been kind of a breakout for them. Torrey Krug hasn't really lived up to that contract. Colton Parayko has been hurt.
Yeah.
They're in the Blues are tough because injuries have overshadowed absolutely everything for them this year.
True.
That's been their dominant story, which means you don't really know what to make of them. But they're always a.
I mean, you question where the success is going to come from. How sustainable is it? You mentioned Justin Falk. David Perron can't keep doing what he's doing forever.
And the David Perron career arc has been fascinating because he was a good player forever, and now he's their best.
He's
their
suddenly
best player.
Great. Yeah.
At 32 years old and making $4 million, they're getting a point per game guy out of him.
Is Ryan O'Reilly the point per game player, or is he the 60-point guy in an 82 game season? Like,
yeah, well, and he's been a point per game guy basically the one time.
Yep.
And this year, he's close to a point per game as well, but some of the other things haven't quite been as good as they have been in the past. So and then with O'Reilly, it's still like, as we see, is he good enough to chew up Nick Bonino or Joel Eriksson-Ek in Minnesota? Yes. But when he has to go up against the actual, like,
top end of the league, yeah,
like the horses in the league, the guys that he, like, the big selling for Ryan O'Reilly, the big selling point is he is great two-way. He's a great two-way player. And he is, but even just looking at it this year, he is, but the defense has dropped a little bit, and the offense, it's still just okay.
And look, we don't cover the Blues every day. There's, I'm sure, nuances that we don't know to the conversation in St. Louis, but from an outsider's perspective, my question is, I'd love to hear someone's take on diving into the underlying sustainability of what this team is doing. Who are their targets for guys that are going to help replace? Look, I know Robert Thomas is great. I know he has the talent, but who else in that organization is coming up to help? Because we've seen players like Sammy Blais not really become what people had hoped for from him.
And like they're probably thrilled to have gotten like the nice, like, goal scoring bottom six option that they have.
Yep.
But you look at it, and you look at the last couple of years, Klim Kostin, whoops,
big miss there.
Like, Robert Thomas, as much as we're like, hey, this is intriguing, injuries obviously have hurt him this year, but he has 8 points in 21 games.
Yep.
Like, right now, Robert Thomas is still more potential. Jordan Kyrou, he finally had the big breakout. 26 points in 42 games. Perfectly respectable breakout.
But these are
a good young player.
It's not top 6 caliber talent.
Right. And then you look at, they've traded first round picks. They draft Dominic Bach and they trade him for Justin Falk.
Yep.
And right now it looks like a good enough move.
But what's coming in their organization? What's the future there?
It's, at forward, it's still Nikita Alexandrov.
Oh, my bad.
Sorry.
I'm over it now. I can just enjoy him being a player.
Like Jake Neighbors in the first round last year is a perfect St. Louis Blue.
Yep.
But what was the question with Jake Neighbors?
High-end ability. Yeah.
Can the offense translate?
Yeah.
Because him being a big body that goes and plays physically and does all that, all of that is going to be easy for him. Just go out and beat you, kid. But it's kind of
a team of 12, 30-point guys.
It's kind of like with Jake Neighbors. It's kind of like what it was with Lawson Krause back in the day.
Yeah.
Is the offense
comparable?
Is the offense going to be the real deal or not? We don't know. Like the WHL this year, he produced insane numbers in 10 games.
Yep.
All right, great. That's already a league that he could physically beat up because he's a machine.
You already knew he could dunk on the WHL.
Yeah. What does he do in the NHL? Does he have the skill level at the net in pro hockey? So they're going to be a fascinating watch. I'm just not sure. Also, getting into the O'Reilly thing, individually, his defense looks good, but then you look at the with and without use.
Yeah.
With their defense is -6, which is good. Without him, it's -11.
So arguably making it worse.
Arguably twice as good without him on the ice.
Yeah. Now some of that will be, because when he's not on the ice, lesser competition offensively is on the ice. But
also the PK, plus 36% with Ryan O'Reilly. Without him, plus 8%.
That's a lot more damning to me.
Now, the PP with O'Reilly plus 15%, without him, -7.
Yeah. So he makes that thing go.
So he's good he's really good at the special teams unit that you would not expect, and he's really bad at the other one.
Yep.
But he's still a face-off monster. And defensively still good, though the with or without use are a little damning.
Yeah.
But it comes back to, like, if that's the best that you have to offer, there's a ceiling there. You have to get a career year from that guy to do something, and it already happened.
I think any good prospects coming up for Vegas?
Peyton Krebs.
Peyton Krebs is the one.
Peyton Krebs is the big one because he's a center, and that's absolutely what they've needed. The problem is that Peyton Krebs does not profile to be a number one center, in my mind anyway.
He's a 200-foot 2C is what he
Ryan
is.
O'Reilly.
Yeah, exactly. Who else they got? They have Dorofeyev, I guess.
Yeah, and it kind of just depends on how you like some of their other guys.
Yeah.
Jake Lecision was a second-round pick. They took Brendan Brisson in the first round last year, and I believe his first year at Michigan went quite well.
Yep.
I feel like I saw highlights of him bombing home those one-timers constantly.
Doing the snipey snipe that he does so well.
Yeah. So they, Nick Hague getting a full-time job is a good thing. Zach Whitecloud getting a full-time job is a good thing. Even Dylan Coughlin. Cody Glass has been kind of a letdown for them.
Yeah, he has not lived up to the hype for sure.
10 points in 27 games, so it's not like bad. It's not like, oh my God. It's just he hasn't been consistent for them.
Yeah. Cody Glass not coming in and being the guy at center is part of the reason why they need centers.
Yeah.
So
William Karlsson is a really good 2C, and Chandler Stevenson has done a great make-believe 1C against bad teams. Seriously, against bad teams, he's been
a monster.
He's been a 1C, but against the good teams, he has completely disappeared.
Chandler Stevenson is a pub stomp champion.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
There you go. Easy.
But it's really Peyton Krebs, and then kind of more of the same. Like Caden Korzak's a guy that I really like. So but again, like you're talking about like a big defender that is gonna like he replaces Braden McNabb.
Yeah,
like it's not necessarily getting better, it's just getting younger, getting the same.
You're again, where is the super high impact coming from?
Yep. They've had to trade for that. And right now I think they're in that same exact position.
Yep. Last question before we get out of here. Pizza Hut or Domino's, no third choice.
They delayed the Canucks.
Okay. Why are they trying to bring them back already?
It was Friday, April 16th.
What'd they delay it to?
That doesn't say.
Okay, so we'll see. That's a developing story, which no one should be surprised they're delaying them.
They should just not with the Canucks. Let those guys be done. They weren't making the postseason. They don't need to play 56 games.
Yep. All right. Pizza Hut or Domino's, no third choice, AJ.
Pizza Hut. With the caveat that I would prefer to not with both.
I would pick Domino's for pizza, but Pizza Hut for wings. That's
I do really like the Brooklyn style pizza that Domino's has, but that's the only thing I like that Domino's has.
So outside of specifics, there you go.
Yeah. Pizza Hut, in general, I would say Pizza Hut is better for me personally. But again, would prefer neither.
We take one day off, we get a 5:30 game, and we rattle off an hour and a half pod, AJ.
I mean, that's what when you're in the groove, you're in the groove.
Yep. It's the way it goes.
People like when we always get people asking us to talk about the league as a whole and away from the Avs a little bit. This is what happens. We talk 90 minutes.
Yep.
We do it once a month. Bam.
There's 30 other teams, soon to be 31, so it takes a minute.
Excited for that expansion draft.
Yeah. Did they really? What? Anyway, I don't know. There's some developing news going on in the NHL, so keep your eyes posted. We are going to get out of here, though. So thank you for watching, listening, however you consume the podcast. We appreciate all of you very, very much. Be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube. How to check out the DNVR.com. Other than that, Avs play again tomorrow night. You can catch us live post-game there for all of the coverage you need. Until then, we'll talk to y'all next time.